Let's see. We are live. It says we're live. Anybody else have this pulled up on their their side screen?
Not yet. I'm going to do it on my tablet.
Yeah, I've got it over here. Okay, we are live. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Am I not muted? I'm not muted. Welcome back to, I can't say the first live episode I've ever done because I did a half a dozen like 2 years ago. But this is the first one that may work out to not be a train wreck. So I'm calling it the inaugural run. Those of you new to my channel, I am Bobby Dizzle, the Bobby Dizzle podcast. You can find all the ways to listen, follow, and I guess track me. Is that a good word? Listen, follow, and watch me, and on all the links in the description and bobbydizzle.com. But tonight we have Robert Bitto with Mexico Unexplained. He has a channel, a website. Those are all in the description. And a Facebook page about Mexico Unexplained. It's all the mysteries of Mexico. Why do I want to say old Mexico? Where have I heard that term before? It's old just Mexico. Well, there's Mexico Unexplained. Yeah, cryptids, history, everything from Chupacabra to the Aztecs. It's pretty awesome. I've browsed this stuff all day. It goes deep. It goes way deeper than I thought Mexico did. And of course, we got Wild Trees here to add the scientific wing of the podcast. Wild Trees, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So I'll just get started with the token selfish question. Robert, what is your favorite mystery you've done so far? Just get the ball rolling there.
Oh, there's so many. It's hard to say. My most, well, probably the one that I was involved with personally when I was a little kid in New Mexico. See, there is a difference. I grew up in New Mexico, and there was a story there that is also in Mexico about La Llorona. And what she is a ditch witch. And I don't know if you've heard of that before.
So interesting you say that. One of my friends at work said, ask him about La Llorona.
Oh?
I shit you not. So here we go.
Well, I have a personal connection going back to when I was a little kid, and then also a modern connection that has to do with my business. But the little kid story, first of all, the legend is of a woman in colonial Mexico who is jealous of her husband. She hears that her husband's cheating on her. And then while he's away, she takes her 2 kids to the river and drowns them. And while the kids are floundering in the water, the mom has second thoughts and tries to save the kids and can't. And so forever now she walks the banks of all the arroyos and the acequias, the canals, and streams, rivers, anywhere where there's running water, she can be there to go and get you. But I mean, that could be based on a real story, or it could just be a cautionary tale. Because when I was a little kid, we would play in the arroyos, in the dry ditches, the dry stream beds, and there could be a rainstorm 10 miles away in the mountains, and then a big wall of water will come down. So it's a potentially dangerous situation. And so it could be a cautionary tale just to keep kids out of the arroyos. But my story was when we were going to teacher's house in the 5th grade, and New Mexico is such a poor state and everything is not so well funded. We didn't have money in the school system for school buses to take us to teacher's house. We had to take like 3 city buses. And one of the bus stops, we had to walk across an arroyo called the Han Arroyo, way west of where our school was. It was like maybe 10 miles away. But we got off of the bus and we had to cross the arroyo on a little bridge. And one of the kids yelled out, "Look, it's La Llorona." And we all looked down the arroyo, and there was an old woman dressed in black climbing out of it. It was a dirt arroyo. Why would there be an old lady in there? I mean, some guy said to me, "Hey, bro, she was dumping trash." If she was dressed in black, woo. And So someone said La Llorona, and then we all looked, and then we all ran, and I've never run so fast in my life, and we were laughing and just tripping over each other and stuff like that. And so that's my connection. Fast forward to the 21st century. I'm sitting in the movie theater, and there's that Llorona movie that came out a few years ago. I'm sitting in the theater, and what do I see on the screen? I see on the screen merchandise that only I carry. Okay. I see Milagros, things, props in the movie, and it's like, what? I'm sitting there in the movie, and there's merchandise that I sell that's specifically made for me in the movie about the Llorona. And then I had remembered that about 9 months before, I had gotten a big order from a Hollywood studio they said that they were working on a movie called The Children. That was the working title of the movie. And I had remembered that like halfway through the movie. I'm like, how did they get this stuff? Then I remembered that I had sent that to some props department. I get so many orders that I can't remember them all, but then, I put two and two together, and it was funny. Through the movie, I was like, okay, there's one of my pieces. So it's like it came full circle almost, 35 years later or whatever, when I was in this dark theater. It's a really weird connection, but I guess that would have to be my favorite legend because it's close to my heart. I guess it has a lot of meaning to me.
Definitely.
So how bad did that freak you out when you're watching a movie and you saw your stuff in a movie about the La Llorona?
It really freaked me out because the first thing I saw was a piece Milagro, a metal charm that was by the doorbell. And I designed that myself.
Oh.
I have it manufactured by someone else, but I designed that piece myself. And I'm like, that's my piece. I designed that. And, that really freaked me out because I wasn't expecting that. Yeah. But then throughout the movie, I counted like 12 items from my business that I exclusively have. No one else has them. And some of the pieces, like I said, I designed that first one, and then there were two others. But then the others are exclusively in my product line. So it did freak me out. And then as soon as I got out of the theater, I called the guy who makes the Milagros, and I said, do you know that some of your pieces that you make for me are in this movie? And then he said, yeah, I went to the movie with my wife, and she was saying, isn't this the stuff you make for Robert? And I said, what, Roehl, why didn't you call me, But he already knew about it, and he thought, oh, no big deal, whatever. But I thought it was something profound. But coincidence? Who knows, right?
Sometimes it's, it's set up perfectly, but if you don't know about it, that's still pretty rough. I wouldn't be able to sleep that night. that whole La Llorona story is very similar. Up here, it may be specific to my area, the deep south, but whenever there's like a bridge that's maybe like less than 1/10 of a mile long over just maybe like a creek or something, and it has like a guardrail, there's always a legend that if you put a candy bar on it, a baby will cry and come and eat it at night, and some lady threw her baby off. It kind of reminds me of the same legend, just the Mexican one sounds more specific. Maybe it has more of a canon to it than put a baby Ruth there and a baby will eat it.
Well, there are a lot of little stories like that around the world, and the ones that I focus on in Mexico are usually never heard outside the country. And that's why I started my channel, Mexico Unexplained, because most of the stuff that I talk about, sure, I have the chupacabra, I have things that people have heard of, but have you heard of the Tlahuelpuchi? Have you heard of the Cuatlacas? Have you heard of the Sisamite? There are all of these creatures and legends and stuff like that they're so localized down there that sometimes people don't even hear about them outside the region or state in Mexico. Much like the story you just told. I've never heard of that before. We live in the same country. I never heard of that legend before. So that sort of thing is going on down there. And I'm bringing it all up to the English-speaking world.
There's a whole lot of material for Spielberg to work with from your just your website alone.
Don't let Spielberg touch that stuff.
We can't let Michael Bay have it because it'll be exploding chupacabras. like why did the chupacabra blow up? I've just been scrolling down through here. There's some crazy stuff like you don't think about it. Mexico's so old.
You know, that's a very important point because culture, there has been complex civilization down there for almost 4,000 years. Some people say even longer than that. And it's been continuous and unbroken up until the Spanish conquest. So the Spanish encountered living civilizations when they arrived. And those civilizations had legacies going back thousands of years, unbroken. So some of these legends, like let's say the Tlahuelpuchi that I just mentioned, a vampire witch, that goes back to, people believe that goes back to 1000 BC. Goes back 3,000 years old. It's 3,000 years ago. Yeah.
What are the details of that story, of that vampire witch?
Well, it's usually all the witch stories in Mexico. It's funny. They're marginalized women. Like in my last podcast, I talked about a witch that, you know, did all of this mayhem and stuff like that in a certain town. It was a story of a witch. And it started with her story being, as a little girl, people considered her ugly and they didn't like her name, Estli, which meant blood. That's what her parents named her, Estli. And so they threw rocks at her. They thought she was ugly and she decided to get back at them. It's like almost like Carrie, right? At the prom, getting back. She decided to go up to the hill and learn the dark arts and then, you know, become a witch and then go after people. Well, it's the same. It's almost the same story throughout Mexico, where women are marginalized or whatever, and they're shunned by society, and then they turn into witches. And the Tlahuelpuchi is a shape-shifting witch. And what she does is she sucks the blood of babies. And this came into the forefront because the Tlahuelpuchi is only in a small state of Mexico called Tlaxcala. And it's only there, and it was brought to prominence in the 1950s because there was some clerical worker in the capital city of Tlaxcala, in the state and the city have the same name. And this functionary at the office where they process records was looking at death certificates. And on the death certificate, the cause of death for a lot of the infants was chupado por la bruja, sucked by a witch. That was the cause of death. That was officially written on these death certificates. So this guy in the capital city went to his supervisor and said, "What? Look, what is this?" And then they went and they investigated. And then the story of the Tlahuelpuchi left these little villages, then went to the capital city, and then went, you know, bigger throughout Mexico. And then I brought it to the English-speaking world. And what it is it's a woman who dabbles in witchcraft. And what she does is she will shapeshift into something to get into your house, like an insect that will fly into the keyhole or through a crack in the window, and then will materialize above your baby and then suck the blood out of the baby and then shapeshift back into something else to get out of the house.
Wow.
And so that's the Tlahuelpuchi. And
That's
yeah.
graphic.
And that was discovered, like I said, by some clerical worker in a government office. Or else it would have probably never been known outside of these dozen villages in the countryside. And the legend, they think, goes back, you know, before there was any written history. So, yeah, we don't know how old it is.
It does make me curious what actually was happening to the babies if they were drained. I mean,
Yeah.
the actual...
Yeah, you never know. I mean, I wonder, it could have been just, I don't know, sudden infant death syndrome, but you know, people say that that is a recent phenomenon. I don't know. It's hard to say. But then, of course, people will say, yeah, it is the witch. It's the Tlawelpuchi. It's real.
The shapeshifting is interesting because there's like skinwalkers in North America, and I think a lot of cultures have that shapeshifting thing, and I think that's interesting.
That's the creepiest part about the skinwalkers is it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's real, like, not real, but it's like transcends continents.
And there are more shapeshifters in Mexico too. The biggest one is the Nahual. And that has been the whole idea of the Nahual has been kind of twisted and manipulated by the New Age movement. The Nahual to the New Age movement is some sort of inner part of your ego or something. It came from Carlos Castaneda, who was a Peruvian person. He wasn't even Mexican, who made up all this stuff about the Toltecs or whatever. But the Nahual in Mexico, that goes back thousands of years. Once again, it's a sorcerer or somebody who is magically inclined, whatever. Somebody told me once, don't ever use the word sorcerer. It's a derogatory term, and you're otherizing people or whatever. Okay, I've heard everything in the comments section of my YouTube channel, like you guys probably have too.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the Nahual, it's a sorcerer that turns into a feline, part dog-like creature, and then goes around and kills people and does all of this stuff.
Interesting.
So I regret mentioning dog-like because everybody now talks about that dog man. And it's so overdone, and everybody asks me about that. Yeah. So, but it's like a feline dog. It's a mixture of dog and cat, and that's what the Nahual is. It has claws and everything in it. Yeah, cool. You can shapeshift back into a man too.
Cool. Now I gotta check out my wife's cat. I'm like, look, what the hell are you? Some kind of Mexican sorcerer? Show yourself. All right, let me pull a wild trees and go to the comments because we have some. I didn't think we'd have any, but we got our buddy Anthony, unidentified S4. What's up, Anthony?
Hey, Anthony.
We got to support our own. Here's me saying, hey. And this is Kevin Stallings. He's the co-worker, great guy, loves blue tick hounds. He is a I can't say your Amarillo, La Llorona. He is the La Llorona enthusiast. I have to walk my Spanish through our Amarillo first. And kind of like the Rock in that movie, The Rundown. Got Anthony. Oh, here's our friend Melinda.
Hey, Melinda.
Melinda's. If I ever get T-shirts, she's getting a free one. She is a blind supporter. Does not care that we are terrible.
She's also got a PhD in biology as well, so she's very knowledgeable.
Yeah, I'm gonna have her on one day. She's definitely sought after in this community because people PhD in biologists. I have questions. I have many questions.
Also, I'll just say right now that when this episode is over, it's going to continue on my channel, Biologist Wildest Trees, right afterwards. So you guys can continue if you want to subscribe or follow my channel. The conversation will continue. As
R. Kelly said, after the show is the after party. After the party. Let's see, we got wild trees spamming. Jeremy Scott, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Hey, Jeremy.
And Melinda. See, Melinda is blind supporter. She's more precious than gold. Anyway, I was thinking of a question before I did that, just to segue. I mentioned Spielberg, Michael Bay earlier. What do you know? Do you know? I know it's been done. What is your favorite American adaptation of a mystery you've explored as far as American media, preferably movies?
Well, I would have to say that Llorona movie. I thought that was well done. I thought it was true to the legend. So, yeah, I was pretty impressed with it.
The only thing I'm thinking of is The Ring, which is Japanese.
Now, is it? I think the Llorona I think it's like a spin-off from the Paranormal Activity universe. I thought I heard that. It's like the same people that made the Paranormal Activity movies are like, let's cater to the Hispanic community and let's use this Hispanic legend. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not
You
sure
think it's
about
the
that.
same one? You think it's the same bunch? Paranormal?
I think it might be the same team, creative team behind it, or producing.
Because
it.
other than The Exorcist, no movie's ever scared me worse than Paranormal Activity.
All
The
of them,
Exorcist ruined.
or just the first one?
I can't see this. I'm not watching another one. I watched the first one in theaters. I came home. I got my sheep's blood and my holy water and went to work. I've never been more scared in my life. I found a bootleg copy of that movie a couple weeks later after I saw it in the theaters. And I'm watching it, and we're in our old house. It's a little house. It's like 1,200 square feet. And right in the middle of it, the ice maker kicked on, and I about shit my pants. I was like, God almighty. What was... I wanted out. I didn't know the ice maker made noise till that day.
I have a question for you, Robert.
Sure.
What is the current attitude toward the paranormal in Mexican culture? And also, has that changed, or has it been the way it is now? Has it changed from the way it was a few decades ago? Is the attitude evolving? This is the second part of that question.
Yeah, it has changed, and with the availability of the internet in the past 20 years, everybody has a camera now too. Mm-hmm. So people are filming more things, and people are posting more things online to the various platforms. And yeah, there is a bigger interest in all of this stuff down there, especially UFOs. That's huge.
Yeah, that's great.
And yeah, so it's becoming more accepted, and yeah, it's a lot different than it was 20 or 25 years ago.
It's funny you mentioned UFOs, because I think some of the best UFO videos have come out of Mexico, just the most impressive ones that are hard to debunk. There's this channel called, I think it's called, what is it called? Something, well, they have a show called, it's called Corridor Crew VFX Artists React. So they're a bunch of, they're a really big YouTube channel, but they produce visual effects, like special effects, but they did a series where they look at videos of supposed paranormal stuff and they try to debunk it. A lot of times they do debunk it, but one of the ones they couldn't debunk was a UFO video in Mexico, and it's very impressive. Like it's a large craft breaking off to little pieces. But what really got them thinking that's like it's not a hoax is that there's another video of the same event from a different angle. And it's like, okay, now we have two individuals filming the same thing, and we get to see it from two different angles, which it wouldn't be impossible to hoax, but it's easier to hoax just one video from one angle, one UFO.
And you can tell it's not the app thing where it's just the one angle.
Like I said, they could not debunk that one. They were like, we have no explanation. It looks like a legitimate phenomenon in the sky that was recorded by two people.
Well, you know what? The national government of Mexico was the first government national government in the world to take the UFO issue seriously and publicly. And it was in the early 2000s when the Mexican Air Force engaged with a fleet of UFOs over the Gulf of Mexico off the coast of Campeche, the state of Campeche. And the government got involved, and they got the number one UFO researcher in Mexico, Jaime Maussan, to investigate that with a team of other experts. And they were completely public about it. And that was the first time in world history where there was a national government that was so upfront about the UFO issue. So that was a historic event that happened. And another thing that I would like to mention too is if you go onto a website called Webcams de Mexico, there are webcams set up all over the place in Mexico. And a lot of the webcams catch UFOs. And so there's a lot of webcam footage of UFOs out there that, anybody can look at them and analyze them or whatever. But one of the most famous sightings that happened it was on a Mexican television show that was similar to our Today Show or Good Morning America. Millions of people were watching this show over breakfast one day, and they were filming the volcano Popocatépetl, which is outside of Mexico City, because it grumbles every once in a while. It's an active volcano. It doesn't pose any threat really to the, Mexico City or anything, but it'll puff smoke and stuff. When I lived down there in 1995, when I was working for a U.S. company, it was erupting. It was grumbling a little bit, but on the show, they had a webcam showing the latest eruption, just a little bit. And then all of a sudden, what looked like a flying saucer came out of the volcano.
Wow.
And millions of people saw that on live TV. Millions of people saw that. And there's always been this belief in Mexico that flying saucers come out of volcanoes. And that goes back to an older belief that goes back to the ancient Maya, all the way back possibly to the Olmecs, that volcanoes are portals to the underworld or to other dimensions. So it makes sense that there would be a UFO coming out of a volcano, an active volcano. But in that case, millions and millions of people saw that over their café con leche and their banuelos and whatever they were having for chilaquiles, whatever they were having for breakfast that morning before they were going to work.
Did it look like a classic metal saucer, or
just flying right out of the volcano?
I have another story. I have a similar
story.
story.
To debunk it? Sorry, Wild.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, as far as I know, no one has debunked it, and it was on live TV. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. All right, you go ahead. I was just thinking, how that's the first thing they do? Swamp gas, everybody. Swamp gas. Nothing to see here.
I was going to just say a story that there's a famous Mexican director named Guillermo del Toro, and Guillermo del Toro, he's directed Pan's Labyrinth, Hellboy, Hellboy 2, Shape of Water, etc. Well, he told the story that when he was younger, he was in Mexico. I don't remember exactly where, maybe close to Mexico City, but he was in Mexico. He was younger, and with some friends, they were hiking outside, and he saw a UFO. It clear as day. It was large, metal. It looked like the classic UFO. And it was funny because this comment was like, he's like, I was disappointed. I was like, really? That's what you look like? You look just like what everybody says, like he wasn't very surprised. He was surprised by the sighting, but not by the shape or anything. He's like, wow, a classic gray saucer. So, yeah.
Are you telling me the comic book man saw the UFO? First UFO ever.
Yeah, exactly. Comic book guy from The Simpsons.
Yeah, comic book guy sees UFO.
Oh, that's crazy.
I've never seen a movie past the 60s.
Robert, we've been talking to people on our channels that are talking about aliens specifically, not just the UFOs, but whatever's piloting the UFOs. So I'm curious, if you do, I'm assuming you do believe in UFOs and that there's pilots in there, but do you think the majority of them have good intentions or maybe negative intentions, or do you maybe not know? What are your thoughts?
Why would you assume that? Why would you assume that I believe in UFOs?
I guess just because the evidence is so strong.
It's funny. I have to tell you this. My brother I'm in San Diego. My brother came down from Bakersfield like 2 years ago because he was concerned about me. Because he said, your podcast is about aliens. I'm worried about you and all this stuff. And then I told him what I tell everybody. So, escúchame bien. I don't necessarily believe in anything I talk about. I'm presenting the information. And so as far as believing in this stuff, I have pretty high standards. I'm a pretty skeptical person. I need a lot of proof. And as far as UFOs go, and then to go a step further and say about pilots on the UFOs, you have to make a lot of assumptions there. And so for me, the jury is still out, but if they do exist, I don't think the intentions are bad. I mean, from what I've researched, there hasn't been. I mean, if their intentions were bad, we wouldn't be here right now. The whole planet would be scorched.
Right. I mean, if they wanted to kill you, you'd already be dead.
Yeah, exactly. But there are plenty of UFO stories and stories about the occupants coming out and everything. But Whether I believe in it or not, well, I ain't saying.
Would you say you were a optimistic skeptic? 'Cause that's what I describe myself as.
No, well, I need a lot of evidence. And, so, and I hate to burst people's bubbles, but that's how I am. But I love reporting on this stuff and I love investigating it and I love sharing it. And whether I believe in it, I'm not going to be like that David Paulides guy. You know who I'm talking about, missing 411.
Mhm.
Yeah, people, when they interview him, they always ask him, what do you think this is? Why do you think people are disappearing in national parks? And he always says he doesn't want to say anything because he doesn't want to commit. And with me, to tell you the truth, I am still open-minded about it. So I don't believe either way. It's not like when my brother came down, it almost seemed like it was some sort of intervention he was doing or something. You're talking about aliens and all these creatures and stuff. And I said, it's not like I believe that such and such happened to me or this and that and the other thing. It's okay. And I've said this to other people before. It's okay not to know. It's okay to have your mind filled with a sense of wonder. Okay. We don't have to be certain about some of this stuff. And, there was a guy I was listening to on a podcast a few weeks ago saying flat earth, globe earth, toroidal earth, donut shaped earth. Can it be all of those things? And I don't know. I mean, can all of these things exist and be part of our imagination or be real at the same time? I don't know. And the deeper I get into this, the more I say to myself, it's okay that I don't know. And, it's a great story and I love to hear about it or whatever, but this specific thing or that specific thing, who am I to know? If somebody tells me that they have seen an Alush or a Cheneque, those are traditional little people in Mexico, like dwarves and elves that are magical beings that live in the forest and all this stuff. That's been something that's been cited for thousands and thousands of years. Is it real? I don't know. But am I going to say you're crazy because you said you saw one? Absolutely not. I will never say that. There's nothing that's crazy. And, what did I see when I was a little kid? Was that old lady? Was that one guy right? Oh, it was some just old lady throwing trash. No, wasn't that. But what was it? Why was she there?
What I think is interesting about studying the paranormal is that because this is what I would tell like a hardcore skeptic. I would be like, look, the thing about studying the paranormal is that what I think is unarguably true about the paranormal cannot be denied is that the stories exist and they continue to exist. So people are saying, I mean, so that's folklore basically. I mean, would you tell somebody, hey, stop studying folklore? Who cares? No, this is modern folklore that stretches back for a long time. So yeah.
Yeah. So there must be something to it. I just don't know what it is.
Right.
Is an illusion? Is like back to the illusion, the Cheneque, these little people. Are they the Greys? I don't know. Right. I mean, are the Greys Aleutians and Cheneques? Right. I don't know. And how can we tell? What was that? I'm sorry.
I said there's so many stories about these little people.
Yeah.
They're
everywhere.
It's like an unsung cryptid that no one gets on fire for because I guess they're not a giant monkey. But like Alaska's full of them. Mexico is obviously full of them. Why can't I get Minnesota is full of them apparently.
It's funny that that's so prevalent because not only is it prevalent in the world of paranormal stories, but it's true in science. We know from fossils that there used to be a species of human that was tiny.
Oh, Florida's island, right? Okay, yeah.
Homo florensis.
Was it Lucy really tiny? The fossil?
She was also very tiny. Yeah. But So there's
that was a long time ago, though.
Yeah, that's probably that was like 9 million years ago. Yeah, that was our earliest. What we think today is our earliest human ancestor. But yeah, I'm just saying the fossil record. I mean, the fossil record also supports animals like Bigfoot, large humanoids, species of humans as well. So those stories, like Robert said, there has to be something to it. Well, yeah, it's not only in culture, but it's in science as well. Those the evidence is there that something did exist at least.
And Bigfoot, I did a survey on my YouTube channel about Bigfoot because there are two Bigfoot creatures in Mexico.
Right.
And most people don't even think that, Bigfoot, they think Pacific Northwest, Northern California, deeply wooded places in, hardcore in North America, Alaska, British Columbia, whatever. But there are places in Mexico where there are thick pine trees that have only recently been explored, like in the middle of the 1800s, because they're so inaccessible and so remote and cut off. And a lot of people don't know that there are two different Bigfoot creatures that are in Mexico. And one of them is called the Sisamite, and he lives in the jungles of Central America and also the jungle parts of Mexico, Chiapas, the Yucatan, the Maya area. Right.
Yeah.
And he's skinny and he's shy. And the Maya have a tradition of the Sisamite as being a creature in the forest, just like a jaguar or a deer or whatever. Okay. So he's out there as a real physical creature.
Right.
Then the Cuatlacas is the bigger, buff, Bigfoot creature who lives in the central Mexican mountains. And like I said, people think of Mexico and they think of Clint Eastwood movies, Dusty and all that stuff. But there are mountains in Mexico that have permanent snow cap, which is the definition of a glacier. So some mountains in Mexico are in a glacial age. And there are even search and rescue teams on some of these mountains, like Iztaccíhuatl. It's a national park and a volcano that's permanently snow covered outside of Mexico City. It's the White Lady, the Sleeping Lady, they call her. It's next to Popocatépetl, which is the active volcano, but that has permanent snowpack and ice pack. And they have a search and rescue team on that mountain that's alpine trained in Switzerland. And you wouldn't think Mexico, gosh. But the Cuatlacas supposedly lives on that mountain. The big, buff, angry Bigfoot. And hikers have seen that creature on that mountain. And also in the wooded parts of the state of Puebla, which are thicker than any pine forest in the Pacific Northwest. So, could this be a Bigfoot creature that was cut off from the rest of North America? Because in between the Central Highlands where the pine forests are and where Bigfoot sightings happen in the United States, there's a vast desert. So some people believe, Bigfoot just got cut off from the rest of North America. And then the Sisamite is something different, adapted to the jungle. Because I guess if you're big and muscular and bulky and all of that stuff, you wouldn't fare as well in a jungle situation.
Well,
Skinnier.
jungles are very tall. Jungles are very tall, so a lot of times if you're a larger animal like the jaguars or whatever, it's good to have a light climbing body because you could take advantage of the treetops.
Mm-hmm.
So that could, but that's fascinating evolutionary how it could have, it makes total sense from a biology perspective that you had one large population throughout Mexico perhaps, but then some kind of geological event happened, climate event happened that isolated both of them. And that does happen. And then those animals become their own thing. That's very cool.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if they're regional as far as their alleged paranormal aspect, portal hopping. Like maybe they can't go too far on the other side before they come out.
Yeah, who knows? A lot of people think that, and then the Maya believe that the Sisamite could just disappear. So there's a lot of that aspect to Bigfoot in North America. I know about that, where people think that he goes through, portals and stuff like that.
Yes, absolutely.
So
been hearing a lot of it lately.
Yeah.
And then you said I remember talking to you previously, Robert, that I think the nice one of these creatures, the slender southern one, gifting is done, or is that the northern one where
Yeah,
gifting
there's
is?
a lot of that going on. And the Maya believe that you would leave him a gift.
Mhm.
And they believe that also with the little people too, the Alush. And the
Chineke.
Alush is in the Maya area, the Chineke is in the central part. Just like Sisamite is in the Maya area, the Cuatlacas is in the central part of Mexico. So they're two different places. But yeah, you leave him gifts. And the Chineke, it's interesting just to go back to that little creature. There was a bridge near the Cancun airport that kept falling down when they were building it. I guess it was like in the 1980s. The bridge kept falling down, and an old Maya elder said, "You didn't get permission from the resident Chineke or the resident Alush who lives there. You didn't get permission from him to build that there. So he's wrecking it in the nighttime." And so what they did is they consulted with some Maya people who were knowledgeable about the Alush, and they built a little house under the bridge for the Alush. And after they built the house, the bridge didn't collapse anymore. So they like appeased him, and then um, everything was fine. And you can drive by that bridge now on the way to the Cancun airport, and you'll see this little house underneath a bridge. And the same thing happened with a concert in Chichen Itza. I forget who was doing the concert, but the stage kept falling down. And then some of the elders came and said, "You guys you did not make an offering to the Alushes. You're not respecting the spirits here. You're not respecting these little people. You've got to make an offering, and none of this will happen." And then, of course, you know the rest of the story. They did the offering, they appeased the Alush, and then nothing happened. So
They're like reverse beavers. They destroy at night.
so is there something to it? You can decide that, right?
Mm-hmm. Let's check out some more comments. We got some good ones here. I just wanted to, while I was thinking about it, welcome our new friend, Long Island Bigfoot. He is going to be on the show, I think, next week, and his channel is amazing. He's up there in Long Island, Staten Island, checking out all that. A ton more cryptid activity up there than I would think. I would think it'd be all NYC, but apparently I know nothing about Long Island and Staten Island. No shocker there. And our buddy Glenn Jackson, Wild Trees, you remember him from a couple weeks ago. He was the that tragic pit bull attack.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah, that was. Every time I think about that, I'm like, Jesus. And our friend Jeremy Scott's back. Welcome again, Long Island Bigfoot. But he did make a comment here. He used to live in San Diego, Ocean Beach, and used to see Sunset Cliffs and see crazy lights over the ocean. And we're surfing in Rosarito, Mexico, and saw 3 craft over the ocean 2 nights in a row.
Cool.
Very impressive.
I saw a UFO here on the Indian reservation. People don't see, once again, like I say, in Mexico, you don't think of pine forests and glaciers. In San Diego, you don't think of Indian reservations necessarily, but San Diego County has more Indian reservations than any other county in the United States. And I was on an Indian reservation in the back country of San Diego, and I did see a UFO. And there were other witnesses too. So,
what did it look like?
It almost, oh gosh, it looked like a tent, and it was orange in color, and it had lights that were pulsing. So it was like this shape, and flat on the bottom. It was weird, but yeah, I wasn't the only one who saw it.
Wow. Lucky you. Lucky everybody who saw
it. I guess. I don't know. Was there missing time? Maybe I wasn't so lucky. I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. A missing time thing. Missing time thing gets me every time you talk to a UFO person and they start thinking about that and they get like a look in their eye. It's like they forgot a homework assignment. It's the same look. Dude, I've seen it. I've seen it like 3 times talking to these guys, man. They're like, yeah, I miss time. Like they just stare off.
Thousand.
Yeah, it's the Marine stare, 1,000-yard stare,
Yeah.
looking through you. Incredible. So, one of my selfish questions I meant to ask you tonight. Now that I'm thinking about it, what do you think the chupacabra actually is, or the stories you've heard? I don't want to get off on that it's scientific fact, but what is the goat sucker according to local lore?
Well, it came out of nowhere. So that's an interesting phenomenon unto itself, because it was first reported in Puerto Rico, okay, which of course is not part of Mexico. It's an island in the Caribbean, which is a U.S. Commonwealth, kind of like a backwater of the United States. But it gained attention in the Spanish-speaking world because of a talk show host in Miami called Christina, and she's like the Oprah of Latin America. And she started to talk about the chupacabras, and then all of a sudden there were sightings in Mexico about this creature, and it was a little bit different from the Puerto Rican one. The Puerto Rican one is similar to, if I may, the cover of my coloring book.
Available at all fine bookstores everywhere.
That's right. Yeah. So the Puerto Rican one is more reptilian in appearance. The one in Mexico is more furry and looks like a gigantic coyote in some reports. But some people say that because of the Christina show, now this can take different paths we can go down, or different rabbit holes, if you may. Was it a mass hysteria event after the Christina show? Or did people all of a sudden have permission to talk about it? Was it something that was always there, but because it was on Christina's show, people then started to say, yeah, I've been seeing this creature and stuff. So is it that? Is it mass hysteria? Is it some guy? There was a sheriff down in Mexico who said it's un gran psicosis, a great psychosis, like massive gnosis or mass hysteria. Sorry. Yeah. So, and then there are other people who think that the chupacabra could be a tulpa. Now, a tulpa is a thought form. So if you're thinking about it, and that it goes back to Tibet, they have the concept of, that's where the word comes from. The concept of, excuse me, the concept of a thought form coming to life is across cultures. And so some people were thinking that these sightings were people forming these thoughts in their minds and the thoughts becoming real. And we have an incident in early 2020 in a small town in Mexico where they all started seeing werewolves, and they saw tracks and stuff. And people were saying that was a tulpa. It was one person said that they thought they saw a werewolf, and then everybody started to say they saw it. And then it manifested in tracks. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. And then, of course, back to the chupacabras, it could be an unidentified animal, a cryptid, a legitimate cryptid. And then, like I said, the Christina show gave people permission to talk about it. So who knows? But one thing about that creature is that it's not seen as much in Mexico anymore, which people who believe that it could be a thought form creation, something manifested. Well, after the Christina show in the 1990s with all the massive sightings and everything, well, that could explain it, that the sightings have died down over the course of the years. So who knows?
Interesting.
That reminds
Like
me
I
of the
said, it's
UAP thing
okay
here.
to not know.
So that reminds me of the UAP thing here. Whenever they released all that stuff last year, and then all of a sudden everybody had a UFO story.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
It was like the exact same thing.
yeah, we don't know. I mean, our minds are more powerful than we think they are. And I don't know if it's possible to do this stuff. But like I said, I'm not closing the door on anything.
Right.
And I rarely commit to things because there's always more evidence. There's always something that's different or whatever. There's more to the story.
It's not beyond the realm of possibility. If vision boards work to achieve a clean house and a new car, then what's 40 million people thinking about a
Hmm.
souped up coyote?
Yeah.
It's not beyond the scope of possibility. I didn't know that chupacabra thing was only a few years old. I thought it was something that's been around as long as I can remember.
Oh.
It's been around. It first came out in the 90s. That's when it, and then, like I said, after Christina, after that show, because that was broadcast to tens of millions of people. I mean, it's funny, in America, we don't know about what's happening south of the border. The most popular singer in this hemisphere in the late 80s was Shusha. And most people don't, you're American, you've never heard of Shusha before, but 500 million other people who share your hemisphere know who Shusha was. She was this tall blonde woman from southern Brazil, and she had a show da Xuxa in Brazil. It was a Brazilian children's show where she was singing and stuff.
Was that the show that came on and everybody's going, Shusha, Shusha,
Yeah.
Shusha? I remember that when I was little. I never knew what it was or what they were saying.
Didn't she have? I think I remember because she had some shoes that were really popular for little girls one Christmas, and even my parents were trying to get them so hard.
Well, yeah, she was a phenomenon. But if you say who was the biggest pop star in the 1980s, female pop star in the Western Hemisphere, people say, "Oh, Madonna," but it was really Shusha, because she had 500 million people watching her and buying her records and everything. But in America, who is she? Nobody. Just like Christina, from Miami all the way to the tip of South America, people knew who Christina was, and they tuned into her show. And then when she talked about this, then everybody started seeing the chupacabra. So I don't know if there's something to it.
Well, I think that's a good point. You're bringing a lot of information forward that people may not know about Mexico, but you're also bringing forward larger points, which is that how close we are physically, but how separated we are as culturally, how things can happen that we're not aware of, even though physically we're so close.
Yeah.
I just wonder what kind of similarities there are between a lot of the, I don't want to say Indian, but Native American, our tribes here, and the ancient Mexicans, because they're basically the same bunch. They all came over on the same Bering Strait.
Well, you know what? That would be like comparing Portuguese to Russians to Scottish people. There's some genetic similarities, but the cultures are vastly different, even within Mexico, even people living next to each other. So yeah, there's a lot of variety. There are some similarities. The Aztec language, Nahuatl, which is still spoken by over 1 million people in Mexico, that native language that was the lingua franca, the official language of the Aztec Empire. 1 million people still speak that language. It belongs to the Uto-Aztecan language family, and it's related to a lot of languages in the American Southwest. Ute, Navajo, Apache. There are different languages that's related to in the United States.
Really?
So yeah, there are some connections. So yeah,
the ones I was thinking more along, not like they're, like you said, not like Scottish or like Russians or like Portugals, not like, but more along the common legends that they may share. that might prove something more paranormal might be closer to true than we think. Like, oh, they think that this, like, they got the hairy man. They have what you said was the Sasquatch in Mexico City. Like, they just have similar stories, different names, kind of like the three major religions.
Yeah, like there's in North American, I think originally like around Minnesota, the thunderbird. Okay, a gigantic bird, right? That people still think the thunderbird could be a cryptid. There's a Mexican equivalent called the lechuza, this gigantic bird, and there's folklore associated with that. A witch, a marginalized woman, remember, who turns into a witch, dabbles in the dark arts, turns into this gigantic bird that goes and kills people at night, and flies over, and the wingspan is like 12 feet, 15 feet long, something like that. And some people believe that these legends are based on an actual creature. And you know what? If I'm going to commit to something, which I don't want to do, if of all the cryptids and legend stories that I've heard, I believe in this one the most, because I've heard so many people talk about this creature. And I even had somebody in South Texas offer to go on a lechuza hunting expedition, take me along with them. And I almost took them up on it, but I don't know, because if you go to my YouTube channel and you go to the lechuza show, it's one of my most popular shows, but look at the comment section. Everybody has a story, and they're like lengthy, detailed stories, and they're all similar, and they're from different parts. This creature supposedly lives in northern Mexico mostly, and then also the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. And that's like the biggest hotspot is around the Rio Grande for this creature on both sides of the border. And so I'm inclined to believe that this is a possible real thing. The witch part of it, maybe not so much. But the creature existing as a cryptid, it's possible.
I used to hunt a lot more than I do now. And when you talked about hunting for it in actual Texas, like legit hunting, is there a like an action you have to do to get like stir them up, or a particular time of year? Like how would it seems like you'd have to do a lot of prep work for a cryptid of that size. I mean, did the hunter mention anything like that?
As far as prep work goes, I'm not sure about that, but people know where they're seen. So okay. This person who said that they wanted to take me on the trip, they were in Rio Grande City, I think. And I guess trees, you have the Texas connection, right? So
yeah. So yeah, I'm right by
where that is. So anyway, yeah. So they told me they knew where these creatures were. And so all we had to do was show up or look for them. So I don't know.
Do you have any way to contact that person again? I'd love to get in contact with them. I think Bobby would too.
It's in the comments section of the lechuza show. They left a public comment. Well, I'm sorry, what?
Oh, I'm sorry. I interrupted you. No, I was going to say, yeah, what I want to do is I'm going to go back, watch that video, and look at all the comments, and then make my own video, maybe expanding on your ideas and also on the comment section. That's really interesting. And then, Bobby, I was going to say, me and Robert have talked about lechuza before, and I came up with a method of attracting one. But then, of course, you have to deal with it once it arrives, so you better be ready. But if it is a cryptid, then large flying animals they navigate a lot through their nose, olfactory senses, because they have to cover so much ground. So I would just get a bunch of fish that's rotting in the sun, close to where you think they are, and I think that would attract them. That would attract a lot of things, actually. Yeah.
Much like the 1999 Matthew Broderick hit Godzilla.
Exactly like Godzilla.
Scene always made me hungry. I'm just picturing the terrain something that big would have to live in, and why wouldn't it be a bigger problem?
Well, you know what I think? People don't realize just how vast. I mean, I live on the coast. I've always lived in big cities pretty much. And a lot of people who live in big cities don't realize how vast North America is,
Yeah, it's
including
monstrous.
Mexico. Northern Mexico, there's so much empty space, and there's so many inaccessible mountain ranges, a lot of places that haven't been fully explored yet. A creature could hang out there with no problem, I think. One that flies? Yeah, sure, why not?
I will also say, to add to what Robert said, when we go to my show in a little bit, I have a lot of satellite imagery of these mountain ranges and these wide open spaces that's going to play, so you
Oh,
could
yeah.
get a look at how vast it is, how much space there is in northern Mexico.
I need to
All
start
over.
heading over there. Wild Trees has the good. He's got that flight simulator stuff that makes me just sit here and just zone out watching it.
Yeah, Bobby used to play Flight Simulator in the '90s. It
Yeah.
looked a lot more blocky back then than it does now. Now it's a lot more realistic.
How dare you? Hang on. Somebody just posted a comment that was going to be my next topic, so we'll call that a segue, possibly our lead out to a Wild Trees after party. But Jeremy Scott wrote, John Teal, who wrote Mothman Prophecies, made correlations to Mothman and Thunderbirds. But I did see on your page, Robert, that there was a Mothman. See, Mothman is one of my passion projects. I love talking about them because it scares the bejesus out of me. But Mothman in Mexico, did that appear with a similar sequence of events as it did in Point Pleasant? Or is it
Not like the bridge incident or anything like that. No, a big winged creature has appeared, and this is different than from the Lechusa because this one looks more like a gigantic moth. So that's the only difference. These big winged, there's also the man bat. That's another huge winged creature, and they all live in northern Mexico. These three things, the Mothman, the man bat, and the Lechusa. So I don't know, there's something there. They all look different though. So that's why we distinguish them.
The Mexicans one's not like a harbinger of doom, angel of death.
Some people say that it is, yeah. So there are not a whole lot of sightings about that though. The Mothman, of those three creatures that I mentioned, that has the least amount of sightings.
That makes sense, especially if it's the same Mothman. It just only appears before things happen. They just haven't maybe put two and two together.
He vacations in Acapulco, you know.
I don't blame him. You know, who would want to hang out in West Virginia in the wintertime? Some say it's almost heaven, but I call almost freezing. Just came up with that one. John Denver, you can give me a call. Yeah, I talked to a lady a couple weeks ago that I'm going to have on. She was talking about some issues she had with the actual Mothman in Point Pleasant. She was going to go survey it, and every one of her team got violently ill anytime they got near the town. So I'm like, shit. I'm like, was it more of like, I asked her, like, is it you're violently ill as like a punishment? She said it was like a warning. It was like an alarm, but it was in our gastrointestinal tract. I'm like, okay.
Interesting.
Warning heard. Doesn't shock me.
I will also say, I think, Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the easiest and funnest ways to support Robert is just go to Amazon and type in Robert Bitto and pick up one of his books or his coloring books. That's what I would recommend.
Well, I'll tell you something about the coloring book. I was looking at those today. I was like, man, he's got the best merch. Like, I was going through your merch section. What am I doing with my life?
Well, you know what? I have a lot of good material to work with. So, yeah, I mean, why not make T-shirts and stuff like that about the creatures and things? Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed the thumbnail I made for this episode, but it was Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite Mexican things because I'm Catholic. And so I think that's the way that they that the church kind of expands down there. It always fascinates me. Seems like they're having more fun with it than we are up here some days.
Yeah, that's a whole other show, I think. I mean, we can talk about that for an hour or 2 hours. There's really a lot about religion going on in Mexico right now.
It's interesting you said that because I was thinking about bringing it up in here, and I always like to have people back, and that would be kind of a panel-esque kind of thing because I could get a priest that is a Spanish minister from my parish. Maybe get some of that happening. This dude, his name's Father Jonathan, but he's the only homily I didn't want to sleep through. So I was like, I got to get that guy on the podcast because he did not put me down.
Awesome.
Yeah, but and he's a Spanish minister now, Spanish ministry. So that may be an idea. I may reach back out to him.
Cool.
But with that being said, we'll wrap this up. It's been an hour and some change. I think we've had fun with Robert's first episode. I know I have. I'm the type of guy that can go for literally hours on this stuff. Now I want to buy this yellow Mexico Unexplained T-shirt. Let me fire that one up. But we'll wrap it up, and everything about Robert Bitto and Mexico Unexplained is in the description. Wild Trees YouTube channel is also in the description, and every way to watch, follow, and listen to me is in the description. So like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll end it. Robert, thanks for being on, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
And everybody check out Wild Trees channel for the after show to this part 2. It's in the description, like I just said. So thanks everyone from the comments. Thanks Wild Trees, and thanks Robert. And until next time, it's the Bobby Dizzle podcast. Signing off.
Bye, everybody.